Okay, so am I coming through on this microphone? Yeah, I'm not coming through on a microphone. Have I switched it on? Yeah, it's on. Is it coming through on there? Because if I haven't got to use it, it's just, I found this mic in there, and it's one of those ones you can use from a distance. So, I can't turn it up from here, it gets turned up from the back. No, it doesn't matter, it's be the main mic. If I haven't got to use it, I just hope that it would be, because when I used it earlier, it was really loud, but then I messed around with things. Okay, no worries? No mic? No mic, okay. There we go. Well, first of all, I just want to, can you understand me? Can you hear me? Yeah. Good? Okay. That's not encouraging. Because for everyone else, you say, I can't hear them. It means I've got a big mouth. Yeah. Two things, and I'm going to try not to get emotional with this, is that we always show that notice up there, there's something for you to do. And sometimes, the things that we consider the littlest things mean the most. So, for an instance, last week I said to Will, I miss Emmanuel not being here. Because all Emmanuel, I say all, I don't mean it like that, he gets up and sings, but he brings life. He does. I know that I worship different when he is here. And I can see some nodding heads already. I had a phone call from someone, I'm not going to mention who it was last week. I had a rough, I don't know, couple of months. One phone call. Totally changed the way I felt. Don't think you can't do anything. Listen to your heart. And if God is saying something to your heart to do something, don't put it off. Get on with it and do it, because it can change someone's life. Because the words from a believer have power behind them. And when words are spoken into our lives, they make a difference to our lives. So, thank you, Emmanuel, and the person who I'm not going to embarrass, but thank you very much, because things have begun to change for me. A different perspective, and that's really what today's talk about. As we look on troubles of life, we all have things in our lives we have had. I mean, and sometimes they're just big troubles in here, and we think, how on earth am I going to get through this? And as I have done in the last couple of months, I've kind of left God on the outside. I've been too busy thinking, too busy doing, too busy going here, too busy going there, and God's had nothing to do with it. Well, I'm still doing the stuff that needs to get done, and people are coming in and saying, oh, that looks good, oh, that's nice, and well, that's all great. But if I haven't involved God with it, then what's the point? It's about me then, isn't it? It's not about God. It becomes about me. So, do you remember the big fights of history? The big battles? Like if I was to say something like, I'll look at that from Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier, and I said, let's get ready to... Well, we all know it, don't we? Let's get ready to rumble. It's famous because it was like Goliath and David getting in to have a fight. And there are a number of things that David and Goliath have been referred to down through history when the big Goliath, whatever it might be, whether it's a person, whether it's a situation, and it's just impossible. It's just not going to happen. And for some amazing reason, or for whatever, it takes place and it happens. So what I've done is just to give us some perspective in our minds at what David was facing before I go into the talk. I've got just a 2-minute video. I don't agree with everything the commentators are saying, but it gives just a picture in our mind what David was like facing Goliath. Hopefully you can see. Can you see that?
He just ran over and he picked up 5 smooth stones, and these he put in his pouch, and he picked up his sling and he walked towards Goliath. And Goliath sees him and he goes, "What?"
It was insulting, actually. It said, "Well, what are you doing, this young, unarmed, the protected guy against me?"
The Philistine curses David and vows basic rules of fighting. David is listening and saying, okay, this guy's talking trash, and as soon as he makes a move, I'm going to put him down. And that's exactly what he did. It's a quarter pound, and a sling can hurl that at a couple of 100 miles an hour. The whip. You know, when you crack a whip, you hear that sound? That's because the tip of the whip is going faster than the speed of sound. It's not a clue, correct the sound. That stone can hit with a great degree of speed and a great amount of force.
According to the legend, all it takes to fell the giant is one shot. But for Goliath, the worst is yet to come. He kills him with his own sword. And
I didn't realise actually that, you know, when you spin something and it's making the sound? Like this guy said on there, the reason it makes that sound is because it's going faster than the speed of sound. That's why it makes the noise. And when that stone would have hit Goliath, it would have been hitting him at just about 200 miles an hour. Now you imagine, I mean, no one's standing for that, are they? So, let's go through these. The lead up to David's fight with Goliath. Goliath stood and shouted to taunt the Israelites. "Why are you all coming out to fight?" he called. "I am the Philistine champion. Why are you, or why you are only servants of Saul? Choose one man to come down here and fight me. If he kills me, then we'll be your slaves. But if I kill him, you'll be our slaves. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me." When Saul and the Israelites heard this, they were terrified and deeply shaken. So there would have been probably around 3,000 soldiers in the army. Now let's be honest. If we're in the army and there's a 9-foot giant, and I said, who's going to go and fight? I'm telling you, you're not going. You're stopping right. So Saul had a problem. None of his army wanted to fight. And something I've learned about this, which I didn't realise, is the reason that Goliath was saying, just send me one man, is because in those days, one man represented the army. So the winner takes all. There wouldn't be two armies fighting. If one man won, that would mean, look, your army's lost. I beat your best man. So and that's what the offer was there. So those 3,000 soldiers didn't want to face Goliath. Now, David was simply a delivery boy. He was there at home with his father Jesse, and his 3 brothers had gone to fight the Philistines. And Jesse, David's dad, said, look, take this to your brothers, take some food. And David actually was working part-time for Saul as a harp player. He'd already been anointed as king by Samuel, so that had already taken place. But what I find really interesting is when David walks into the camps where the 3,000 soldiers are, and he's kind of saying, so what's going on then? And he's, well, haven't you heard? Haven't you seen? Haven't you seen the giant? And David's going, well, so what? We're God's army. Big deal. What's the problem? David's not dressed up with a sword, an armor, the helmet, nothing. He hasn't been trained to kill, to fight. He's a shepherd boy. But what has hit David's heart is, this is God's army. We are walking forward with God, and you're letting them defy God's army. As soon as the Israelite army saw him, they began to run away in fright. Have you seen the giant? The men asked. He comes out day by day to defy Israel. Now, at this time, David was around 15 to 19. I like to think that he was 15. It just makes the picture look a lot better, doesn't it? But he wasn't afraid of what he saw before him. When he saw Goliath, he trusted in God. So even at that young age, he wasn't going to allow anybody or any army to defy. David, and this really should resonate, I think, with a few of us, because David didn't get the support of King Saul, and he didn't get the support of his brothers. This is what it said. When David's oldest brother, Eliab, heard David talking to the men, he was angry. David's brother got angry. What are you doing around here anyway? He demanded. What about those few sheep you're supposed to be taking care of? I know about you, your pride and deceit. You just want to see the battle. See, man's perspective, David was giving his thoughts. He was saying, come on, this is God's army. We're going forward with the Lord. Let's do it. Come on, do it. Who are you? You're just a tweeny shepherd boy. I'm a soldier. Get back and look after your sheep. Stop winding the men up. His brother obviously was looking down on him. Where are the few little sheep you should be looking after? Where's your little staff? What I love about David is that even with those things being said to him by his own family, he chose not to hear it. It's really hard, isn't it, when you've got loved ones that don't believe in you? Really difficult. And it hits home. And it can take a lifetime of working through. But David, instantly, I am not hearing that. I'm standing on God. My faith lies on God. And that's where I'm going to focus. So David, as small as he was, has already fought bears. And listen, I just want to say, this isn't a story. No, it's not a story from the Bible you pick up and you think, oh, this really happened. It really took place. He's already fought bears, rescued a lamb from the jaws of a lion. He'd already known God's strength and was victorious. Alone, he knew the outcome would be different. Alone. King Saul he didn't want to know. The 3,000 didn't want to know. One boy, about 15, 16 years old, stood on the Lord. Don't worry about the Philistine, David told Saul. I'll go and fight him. Don't be ridiculous, Saul. You can imagine King Saul. Oh, don't be so stupid. Look at you, you tweeny. You play a harp. You play a harp, boy. What's the matter with you? There's no way you can do it. It's impossible. He says, this man has been a soldier since he was a boy. And you're only a boy. You've never even picked up a sword. What are you going to do? Play the harp to death and hope he dies on the... It's not going to happen, is it? But David wasn't going to let anybody insult God. It thrills me. David was not going to let anybody insult God. He had faith in God. He was ready to fight. The Lord who rescued me from the claws of the lion and the bear will rescue me from this Philistine. Saul finally consented. All right, go ahead, he said, and may the Lord be with you. But I mean, what else did Saul have? He had nothing else, did he? The only hope he had was this little boy that was willing to go out and fight. And I know that when we've all heard that you've seen these pictures with the armour falling off of David, they're more cartoon things, isn't it? And they make us believe that the reason that David didn't wear the armour was because it was too big. It's not. The armour was fine. But he put the armour on and he thought, this just isn't me. I just can't wear this. It's prohibiting me. Because whilst he'd been out with his sheep, what is there for him to do? Except for him to have a sling? He couldn't do that with his armour. He's thinking, look, this is stopping me. This is just not the way I do it. How many of us have done things for others and done it their way, knowing full well this is just not how I do it, but we still do it, and it don't work for us? Why don't it work? Well, because it's not me. It might not be you. David saw straight away. Look, he took a couple of steps. Well, thanks for the offer. The sword. He's 9 foot tall. What am I going to do? Cut his toenails for him? No, it's just not going to happen, is it? So he left it all behind. So most of us have been told those stories, but the truth is that David stood by his faith in God. And now we've got a picture we've got the Philistine army. And it's not, they're not up in the air in helicopters and airplanes. We've got the Philistine army, we've got the Israelite army, and coming through the cloud. Can you imagine it opening up as little David walks through with his staff? And the Philistines are saying, what's going on? And as we saw there, Goliath is standing there 9 feet tall, and there's this little puny boy comes out. It's unrealistic, isn't it? David replies to the Philistine, "You come to me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of heaven's armies, the God of armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will conquer you, and I will kill you and cut off your head. And then I'll give the dead bodies of your men to the birds of the wild animals. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone assembled here will know that the Lord rescues his people. But not with sword and spear. This is the Lord's battle, and he will give it to us." I started focusing in on reflecting on how my thoughts had been driven elsewhere. Is that we've said time and time again that this is God's church, it's not our church. It's for him to build his church. And we say, no, God, this is how we want it. This is our preference. This is how we've always done it. Please build. No, this is God's church, and let's let him build it his way. And it's not easy to step aside, is it? Because we're so used to doing things like we've done them for many years. Actually, I can remember a friend of mine. He was just getting new chairs for the church, and he lined up 6 different chairs for this lady or this couple to have a look and to sit on and try. They never even sat down and went. And the lady said, "I don't like any of them." And my mate said, "But you haven't tried any of them yet." She said, "I don't need to. It's not the same one I've been sitting on for the last 55 years. We don't like change, do we? We don't like it. It gets to us. So as they're walking out, you can picture David walking out and Goliath coming closer, but David begins to run. I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? He begins to run forward. He's not running from anything. He's running forward towards Goliath while he's swinging it. But he collected 5 stones. I wondered why. He knew, as we just read, he knew that he seemingly knew that he was going to kill Goliath. He knew that he was going to cut his head off, and he's collected 5 stones. Didn't he know he was going to kill him with 1? He had no assurance at all, other than he rested in his faith on God. It might have taken 3 stones, it might have taken 4. You can't say that he wasn't taking any chances. He just picked up the 5 stones because there was 5, and he didn't know how long it was going to take. What he did have faith in was that God was going to give him victory. And he wasn't going to get caught short with 1 stone. He didn't want to be running back for another one, did he? If he needed another stone. But it only took 1. The precision. Being there with his sheep, and having some Coke cans lined up by a tree, or some beer cans if he was thirsty. So he wouldn't have had them, by the way. He wouldn't have had any cans of Heineken. Refreshes the past and other beers he can read. Anyway, and that's what he would have been doing. He would have been practicing. David knew God gave him strength. He knew the battle belonged to the Lord. He wasn't discouraged by what others said to him. He didn't try to win the way people said that he should win. He wasn't afraid to be himself. His confidence was in God, and he stepped out in the name of the Lord. Oh, I wish I could be like that. I really do, but people. This is how we move giants from our own lives. We focus on Christ. We focus on God. We seek him and in our lives. Now I realise for 1 or 2 of us it might be a little bit different church for you, but there's a personal. A one-on-one relationship with God, and you will know the voice of God. He will speak to you. You will speak to him. He is alive and he is real. Now, it didn't look good for David, did it? All of those bystanders, all of those other soldiers from both sides looking on, it didn't look good for puny little David walking into the arena, let's say it was an arena. And all of them were just kind of going, oh, the poor boy's he's not going to make it. He's going to die. One swoop of that big sword, I don't know how big his sword was, but I mean, to reach down from 9 foot, it must have been a heck of a sword. One swipe, and David would have been dead. David recognized, however difficult things appear, however daunting a situation might look, you can face it if you do it in the name of the Lord, in his strength, not in your strength or my strength, in his strength. There are many people in the Bible, and there are, I mean, you could probably name a few, that walked in God's strength. When troubles came, they faced some terrible atrocities in the scriptures, but they stood on God's strength. And for me, it's Daniel. Let's get past that one. Can you put on the Daniel chapter 3? That's him. These three, and I know you've heard about these before, but these three move me. This is King Nebuchadnezzar to Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. I will give you one more chance. This is what the king is saying to them, to the three. I'll give you one more chance to bow down and worship the statue that I have made when you hear the sound of the musical instruments. But if you refuse, you will be thrown immediately into the blazing furnace, and then what God will be able to rescue you from my power? Now I know you've heard the story, I don't know how many times. But Nebuchadnezzar heated up that furnace 7 times hotter than normal, because the scriptures say he was furious. Absolutely, he was gone. His face, it says, was distorted with rage with these 3 men. Soldiers who'd went and turned the furnace up hotter were dying because it was too hot. And I can only imagine how Nebuchadnezzar felt when they responded with this. O Nebuchadnezzar, we do not need to defend ourselves before you. If we're thrown into the blazing furnace, the God whom we serve is able to save us. He will rescue us from your power. If I was the king, I would have ripped them one at a time and mashed them up there myself and booted them in. Because I'm already feeling it for him, you know what I mean? I just know how angry he must have been feeling. And I could have been 20 foot away from the furnace, they still would have reached it. And this is it. This is the crunch of that verse. This is where we see Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego standing, resting on the strength of God. Because there before them, and they know it's going to happen, there before them is a furnace that's going to melt them. And they said, but even if he doesn't, we know that he can, but if he chooses not to, we're still not going to bow down, Nebuchadnezzar, to your statue or any of your gods. Well, when they went up to the furnace and they were thrown in, we know how it ends, is that they were met by a 4th figure who led them around the furnace. They walked around in the furnace. I wouldn't want to try that, to be honest with you. But when they walked out, what did Nebuchadnezzar say? Praise the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Philippians 2:9 says this, because there is a name that is above all other names, and it says, therefore God elevated